What's going on, guys? This is Coach Andres, registered dietitian, and your host for Viva Nutrition Radio. Super excited that you joined us back up again this week on another episode. This is episode number 83, and my guest today, his name is, like me, Andres. He is originally from, I think it's Colorado, with both of his parents are actually from Mexico. His full name is Andres Villalba, and he's the founder of La Tribu, which is an accountability group that helps people actually work on obviously their life goals, whether it's financial, business, whatever may be the case. And today we had the pleasure to actually bring him into the podcast for him to kind of share some of his methodology, for him to share his story, how he was a professional basketball player, and obviously he grew to develop a lot of businesses that are all supporting social causes, which is actually the most important things. But I'm going to read to you obviously his bio so you understand a little bit more about who Andres is. All Andreses are pretty badasses, so definitely this one he's not an exception. So philanthropist, he's an activist, he's a coach, he's a real estate investor and broker, he's an entrepreneur, he's also a public speaker, he is a vocal leader, trailblazer in philanthropic work for over 20 years. And I think he actually talked in the podcast about how he started this process when he was playing professional basketball in Mexico. He's also a youth mentor and leads, like as I mentioned earlier, La Tribu, which is, again, a sort of like an accountability group that pushes past people's limiting beliefs and the barriers to reach greater success. As a family man and a community leader, Andres strives to do more and continuously looks for ways to motivate others. He's a graduate from the Universidad Regional del Norte in Chihuahua, Mexico, and he has a bachelor's degree in international business, master's degree in finance, and he is a very smart cookie when it comes down to accountability and life success. He doesn't really like to call himself a life coach, but he definitely does. He creates a lot of impact with one of my clients. I actually listened to his podcast first, and one of my good friends, he's been on the podcast, Cody McBroom. And I definitely wanted to bring him on. And some of the things that we talked about was some of his hardships, how he started a lot of his businesses, and how he actually teaches people how to develop good goals and how to sometimes pivot whenever the time is needed. So anyways, I'll leave you to that. Of course, if you want to find out more about him and what he does, you can find all those things in the show notes. But I'll leave you to this. Of course, before we move into that, I just wanted to actually give you a quick announcement on here. We're currently and actively taking nutrition coaching clients for our program. We're very particular on who we decide to bring. We want to make sure we're only bringing people that are part of something greater, that they're looking for success, and that they're obviously looking to achieve nutrition and fitness goals that extend just beyond what they look, but also something mental and a lifestyle change. If you think that you have what it takes to be a part of our group, I want you to join our group of over 40 to 50 clients that we actually help on a monthly basis to achieve those goals. We want to invite you to apply. You can actually find all the details down in the show notes as well. Anyways, without further ado, here's Andres Villalba in our episode number 83. All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome back to Viva Nutrition Radio. I was actually, one of the ways that I like to bring on guests is I listen to other people's podcasts. And if you guys remember, about a year ago, I had the chance to have Cody McBroom. He is the podcast host for the Boom Boom Performance podcast, or Boom Boom Performance Radio. And of course, you guys love that episode. So I usually kind of go and listen to his podcast a lot. And I love to bring in a lot of the guests that he actually interviews, because the interviews are bomb. They're amazing. And today's guest, he is here today. His name is like mine, and I'm pretty excited about that fact. His name is Andres. I can actually say it correctly. Villalba. Welcome to the show, man. How are you?
Oh no, I'm excited to be here, and I think we share the same story as far as not very many Andreses.
Yes.
And if we do, that can actually, pronounce it the right way. So I appreciate
Yeah, rolling the R's, right?
Exactly.
That's awesome, man. So have you ever, because one of the things about me is I actually start to introduce myself the gringo way, like Andres.
Right.
Have you had to do that the same thing as well?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Because if not, the funny story is, growing up, my dad's name's Andres too.
Okay.
So growing up, my family called me, they still to this day call me Andy. Right?
Okay.
Just like the distinction between my father and I.
So they can kind of differentiate.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah,
it was
because
not Andres and Andres Jr. It was like Andres and Andy.
yeah.
That
And
makes sense.
the name Andres is actually pretty strong in on my dad's side of the family. If I'm not mistaken, I think there's like 19 of us or 20 of us
Really?
that have some form, whether it's like Alfredo Andres
Yeah.
or Andres middle name something, whatever. But yeah, so there's a long line of Andreses. But
It's
yeah, here
interesting.
I've had to, say, what's your name? Oh, my name's Andres. Roll with
Yeah,
it.
man. There's a time I used to work at an Applebee's, and there's a time I introduced myself like, "My name is Andres," and like literally the lady says like, "Did you just ask me to undress myself?" And I'm like, "Nope, that's not what I did.
Exactly
I'm
right.
just trying to kind of like pronounce my name the way that you can understand it." So that's
Right.
interesting, man. Well, again, thank you so much for taking the time to be on today's show. I love to kind of hear your story, man, because I one of the things that one of the reasons people listen to our podcast a lot is because they like to kind of hear people's backgrounds. And one of the things that really resonated with me a lot as I listened to your recent episodes with Cody was your story, because we I think share similar things. We may be from different countries, but we do share similar kind of stories as far as that. So why don't you kind of take us in memory lane and how you actually, well, tell us a little bit about you, who you are and what you do.
Mhm.
But maybe let's start from the beginning.
Yeah. So I was born in Denver. My parents are from Mexico, from
Hmm.
Durango, and I was born in Denver. And from I think I was 2 or 3 when we moved to El Paso, Texas, and that's the border town with Juarez, Mexico.
Hmm.
And so, very normal upbringing for myself. I didn't know till later in the years that we didn't have a whole lot, but I think I always go back to it, and as cliche as it sounds, I didn't really need anything, that anything else than what I already had. But strong family, really close knit family. It's just myself. I have 2 siblings, an older brother and older sister, and my parents. And my childhood was pretty normal. Got into trouble here and there, like a normal kid. Nothing too crazy. Um, and my parents always worked a lot. 2 jobs at times, and through life, growing up, the whole structure of giving back and sharing the blessings. My mom always, till this day says, if you're blessed, be a blessing. And so that kind of shaped to where I am now. Even back, I remember as an 8-year-old, 9-year-old, 10-year-old, seeing what was going on with my parents and what they would do, to make other people feel comfortable, to make other people feel welcomed. It just stuck with me. So you fast forward. I went to university in Chihuahua, Mexico. That's actually where I got my degrees, and that came about kind of in a crazy way where I went down there to play pro ball. I played pro basketball, and one of the kind of in a weird way, one of the coaches from the pro team was the head coach of the school, and it just worked out to where now I'm going to school, right? And it was always a dream of my parents, to have one of the kids graduate from college. My brother didn't, my sister didn't, and at that time there wasn't a lot in even my extended family that had graduated college. So that was kind of what took me that route as far as like going to school. And my parents always implemented the fact that even though they didn't go to school for a long time, I think my mom went to 6th grade in elementary. I think that's as high as she went, and my dad, I think, was like third. They always just pushed. They believed that going to school was a part of the American dream,
Yeah.
right? And so I went that route. I played pro ball, got my degrees, and got to travel a lot playing professional basketball. A bunch of different countries, played in different countries, and throughout that whole thing, it always stuck with me the ability that somebody in a position, playing a professional sport in that country could have for kids. And I mean, because to them, it's like what an NBA player is to us here, right? It's like the
In Mexico,
ultimate,
right?
yeah, it's like the ultimate athlete, right? So
Hmm.
so seeing the I guess the appeal that I had and kind of the following that I had, it always stuck with me. Like, okay, how can I do more? How can I do more? And in 1999, 2000, um, started working with an orphanage there in Chihuahua, and that's where the giving back really just kind of started going for me. And it all started with like summer basketball camps, and then it grew from kids needing a place to stay. So building a cinder block building pretty much to house them. And it was just, they just need a place to stay at night. That's all that matters. And then from there, it grew and it grew to what it is now, where there's multiple orphanages that not only house kids, but also, trek them to school back and forth, and really give them, one, a place to stay, but two, hope, right? Hope that even though their circumstance, whatever it was growing up, that there are people out there that are willing to help and are willing to kind of guide you to better things, whether it's school, whether it's college, whether it's a trade school, whether it's just an understanding of knowing more. That was it. So, that kind of takes you through my 20s, and really this kind of burning feeling in me to always wanting to do more and more and more and more. And it led to opening businesses, running businesses. And there was always this feeling that I think everybody kind of has at some point, is just like there's always this void. Like, what else? Like, I should be doing something else, even though businesses are successful, financially successful, family successful. But there's always been this void that I just can't seem to fill up. and to me, that's, if you follow me on IG, I use the words longer table a lot. And to me, it's building a longer table to where more people can eat, more people can feel secure, more people can feel welcome, more people can feel heard, more than anything, through all my projects. So all my projects that I do, even right now, are 100% invested in some shape or form into the giving back, right? So if you take it all the way back to kind of do a little, to resume it all, it's from a young age, giving back was instilled in me. I saw it firsthand, playing in these countries that were third world countries at times, and with a lot of suffering, a lot of people just not having enough, to now, even at this point in my life, to where that void is still there. And it's and I can be honest and say that early on I figured, oh well, one orphanage should do it, right? And
Yeah.
that void will be covered, and like, let's move on. But obviously there's been more need than ever. There's been more people that have been, kind of pushed away or set aside from gaining, what everybody else gains. So how can we do a better job of just helping out, and kind of trying to plant a seed that could maybe at some point sprout a tree that will kind of put him in a different direction. I mean, that's all really we can hope for. So from there, owning businesses, I was always someone that people reached out to for advice, for even just to kind of lend an ear and just hear somebody's stories and struggles. And over the years, it became apparent that, talking to my mentors and my coaches, that it should become something more. And that's where La Tribu was born. La Tribu was born officially about a year and a half ago, but unofficially, I mean, geez, over the last 12 years of just
Really?
mentoring, helping people. And to me, it was always a struggle to accept the fact that I had something. And I think a lot of people can resonate with this. And I deal with this every day on calls, coaching calls, that there's always this feeling that we have that, one, like, why would somebody want us, to help them? And I think we always feel inadequate to a certain extent of having that responsibility, to help somebody. Why would somebody reach out to me consistently? I always said, like, I don't know it all. I don't claim to know it all. But I think we all have a gift. I really truly believe that we all have a gift, and whatever that gift, if it comes natural, then that's kind of where our purpose comes from. And thankfully for me, now through La Tribu, like I said, as an official thing, helping people really just go through a systematic approach of reaching goals. That's really what it is. It's, I tell people, I don't have this secret formula. I don't have, it's just a matter of let's check the boxes, make sure and check in that you're on the right path, and really gain clarity on who it is that you want to be and what it is that you want to do. And we take you on this journey essentially that will help you achieve whatever it is that you want to do. And now I can proudly say that we have a really good movement, a really good people that have bought in 100% and are seeing some great results.
That's awesome, man. And I think I do nutrition coaching. You kind of do lifestyle, everything coaching from that perspective. And I think one thing that can probably like be in line with what we do is accountability. I didn't know what that was until I hired my first mentor. And it's funny because I decided to do it as a strategy to learn what other people in my same field were doing, and not expecting anything more than just, I want to see what this guy does, because I want to do the same thing. But then without realizing the impact that having a mentor or an accountability coach actually keep you in line to do certain things. So it sounds like that's exactly what you do. So like for people listening to this, specifically guys, because I feel like men sometimes, and not just to be sexist, but it's the reality, we're too guarded when it comes down to some of this stuff. And we're the first ones that will actually be too good to ask for help. Do you deal with that on a daily basis? Like, how do you approach a situation specifically? Because I know you do have a lot of guys in your group, right?
Yeah, actually, we have the majority is guys, and it's this thing that, again, going back to the gift, I think when you have a gift of being able to connect with people, right? Because that's really what it is. It's feeling a connection with someone and automatic trust, automatic respect. And that's the first thing I ask for is, look, like, if you don't respect me, then it's not going to work. It's just not, because there's no way for me to hold you accountable other than to just check up on you. I'm not going to physically hurt you, right? I don't have any, you know what I mean? So it's like, but if you don't have that respect of saying, man, it's almost like the respect, I always put it to the respect that I had for my coaches, right? Like, if I didn't go train and do what I was supposed to do, even though they weren't watching, I was going to feel bad showing up to a game and not being able to produce, because it's going to be evident that I didn't do what I was supposed to do. And now I've let them down because of the respect that I have for them. Now I feel bad, right? So with guys, I think the first thing that has to happen and we work on is letting your guard down, right? Like, it's not going to work. One, it's not going to work if you're 100% truthful, not only with me, but the first step is to be 100% truthful with yourself and really accept the fact that, one, you're not perfect. Two, nobody is. So trying to keep this image of, again, guys, it's a pride thing. It's an ego thing, right? We're hardcore. We're strong, especially guys that train a lot, right? Like they have it all. But deep down inside, there's always this underlying issue that we have to bring out first. And that's actually the first plan of attack is, aside from what your goal is, if you come to me saying, I want to do this in my career in the next 6 months, and this is what I want you to help me with, that's not what we aim for. The first 30 to 60 days is just, who are you and what is it that you're struggling within yourself first, before we can even start tackling anything, further down the line.
Would you consider this to be like helping them understand what their why is?
That's exactly what it is. Yeah. Yeah. And to me, because I always had that question, I struggled with accepting what my why was, because early on, as a 20-year-old, 25-year-old, I just wanted to make money. I mean, like anybody, right? I wanted to have the cars. I wanted to have the houses. I had this stigma because of the person that I looked up to at the time. That's what he had. Right. And to me, I couldn't see all the underlying issues he had because I was too blinded by the fancy cars and the houses. Right. So to me, somebody that had that has everything. Like that's just the way it equated to me. But going through, the more this gift I had or my why was, I kept pushing it back because I knew that it wasn't going to give me what at the time I thought I needed, which was more financial stability. And who's going to make more money by giving the majority of it away to help other people? It's just not going to work out. But I think that's the first step. The first step is just being clear on, and not necessarily, a lot of people get this mistake, and it's not necessarily like, who you're going to be for the rest of your life. It's just, who do you want to be in the next 12 months? Like, I'm not here to tell you that you should change your career because your why is something totally different that's going to happen 10 or 15 years down the line. It's just, can you be happy with who you are right now and for the next 12 months? And then we'll take it for the next 12 months and so on and so forth. And little by little, it's not me that I'm telling you that you're doing something you shouldn't be doing, but you'll find that out yourself. And not everybody has this drastic change of careers, right? There's people that are doing what they should be doing for the rest of their life. They're doing it right now, but because they haven't been clear on it, and they don't really understand what their fruit from that particular career is, they always feel like they're doing something wrong, and it's not that, right? If you're just not clear on it.
And I think, because every time I kind of, turn this around with my clients from the nutritional standpoint, and you start to think about, okay, what is your goal? Like, why do you want to accomplish X? And it's usually, well, I just want to lose weight, but why? So it's kind of like peeling the layers, right? Trying to figure out exactly the deeper thing, because at the end of the day, that's what's going to motivate you to do the things that you want to do. For you, it was like, for me, it's the same thing. Like, I literally, and I wrote it down up there in like a little vision thing that I had. It's like, I want to make $1 million a year. Like, that's kind of like the thing. But then it was not until I started to like dive deeper into understanding, why do I want to do this? Like, is it just to have zeros on my bank account? Right. Or is it actually what it represents, what it will help me provide my family and other people? Exactly. And I think a lot of people, when they start to do something and set goals, I feel like they have like the superficial thing that they want to accomplish, but they don't really kind of peel the layers to understand the deeper meaning of what that is.
Exactly. And I always say this, look, if money's the all end all for you, like, I'm no one to tell you that that's wrong. As long as you're clear on why it is that you want those 10 and 12 zeros in your bank account, that's perfect. Because that's what have meant that you've been successful for what it is that you want it for. But if you tell me, because it happens a lot, right? Like, well, I want to make X amount of money. Okay, and what's going to happen when you get there? And they're just like, I mean, I don't know. It's like, that's what I'm trying to get at. What if you want to make $1 million and you make it in next year? Then what? What are you gonna do with the rest of your life? And there's no answer. And on one part, it's okay to not have that answer, but two, at least think about it to where you have clarity on why it is that you're trying to get there. If you want to buy a $200,000 car, why do you want that car? And it could be, man, I've just always dreamt of having that car. Cool. But then what are you going to do after that?
Yeah. And it applies to many different things, because it's like, it gets to that point where like nothing is ever enough. And then like, right. Okay, but you said that you wanted this, and then now it's just not enough. So, and it applies, like it happens like, from, in the nutritional, like, arena, like fat loss, weight loss, body comp and everything. It's like, well, I want a six pack. Well, you get to that point, but and that's a part of it, what I start to actually like, talk about a lot about celebrating small victories and like the smaller steps and stuff like that. I also want to kind of get a little more tactical in this conversation, also to ask you some of like the tactics and things that you implement, but it's like, how can you start to do checkpoints and figure out exactly what your why is and where you're at, because otherwise nothing is ever going to be enough, and you're never going to feel fulfilled. Right?
Exactly. So, yeah. So what I usually do is I say, okay, for instance, I have a client that wanted to do in the fitness world. She wanted to do a bikini contest, right? And it's like, that was her goal, right? Because she was overweight. She lost a lot of weight, and that was her, like, to her, that was a culmination of her journey, right? Like, if I can do that, then I've succeeded with my original plan. And as I asked her, it's like, okay, so like, close your eyes. Right? Let's think of 4 months down the line, and you just walked off the stage. Now what? What are you feeling? It's like, well, no, I feel great because I did it. Okay, perfect. Let's go a week past that. What do you feel now? You're not on the stage anymore, right? And as she went deeper, she was doing it more for somebody else, right? She was doing it more for somebody that had told her at some point that she was never going to lose weight. And she was definitely never going to be able to compete in a bikini contest. So she was fulfilling this, I guess, inner desire that she thought was for herself, but it was going to be empty a week past the competition. And then if you put it into perspective, and you know about this way more than I do, like the toll the body takes emotionally, physically, to go through that process, And then for what? Then I told her, we're running the risk of having to pull you out of a deeper hole a week past that point, because you've literally put yourself through this ridiculous process, and it wasn't even for you. And are you going to feel guilt about that? Right. And so, not trying to dissuade her from doing it, but just like make sure that what you're doing it for the right reasons. And that way you don't feel, one, that you wasted time, or two, you feel this inner guilt of like, man, why did I go through that? Like, for
Yeah.
who or for what?
And when it comes down to like setting goals, and I think one of the things that you talk a lot about this is like, what is the process of navigating to get to that point? So I think a lot of people sometimes is the biggest issue that they kind of run into is like either setting unrealistic goals or not necessarily having a roadmap to get to them. So how do you help people like navigate to that point? So let's say, for example, okay, my goal is to achieve X amount of weight or make X amount of money, or launch this business or something like this. Like, how do you, because one of the things that's, from the accountability standpoint is to kind of help it to put into specific kind of maybe steps or so like that. So what is maybe your process for people listening in, that they can kind of like maybe start to package that goal into ways that it's something accomplishable?
Well, for one, the first conversation is the realistic expectations, right? Like, let's be real. Let's be honest with where it is that you're trying to get and the time frame that you're giving yourself for that. And I think that's the expectation itself. I don't think is the unrealistic part. It's the amount of time that people want to get it done, right? Like if somebody came to you and said, "Well, I want to lose 30 pounds in 60 days," right? Like, man, you're putting me up against the wall, right? Like it, and the other side of it is the conversation of like, how bad do you really want it? Like, what are you really, truly, honestly willing to do to achieve this goal in a certain time frame, right? So we always go, obviously, the goal first, and then we reverse engineer it to how it breaks down on a weekly basis. That's really what it comes down to. And we go. I always tell people, okay, that's the goal. Let's just say your goal is 6 months out, perfect. But we're not going to look past from this week till next Thursday, and then we're going to reevaluate where we're at that point, and then go to the next week and the next week and the next week. The most important thing that I have found, especially with accountability and performance coaching, is making sure that at each checkpoint, that realistic expectation is brought back and really like to the front of the head of like, when you're thinking about it, like, is it still realistic? But every week, that's the only way to do it, because what happens is, I know a lot of coaches don't want to have that difficult conversation because it almost feels like we're not going to be able to get there, right? And nobody wants to hear that, right? And coaches are afraid to have that conversation because now they feel that the client is going to think that, well, maybe you're not the right coach for me, right? Like, no, I need somebody that's going to push me. And it's like, I'm going to push you, but I'm also not going to push you for something that's not even reachable. And I'm going to be 100% honest with you. So I think the first step is just finding that realistic goal, right? Finding a realistic time frame for that goal, and then reverse engineering it, but making sure that each week when the accountability process happens, that we're being real and honest with each other and I'll be the first one to be like, I don't think you can get there in that time frame unless you do this, because based off of last week's effort, like, if you continue this pattern, you're not going to get there.
Yeah, one of my mentors once told me, it's like, you always need to tell your clients what they need to hear, not what they want to hear.
Exactly.
So it's always, I guess like the main takeaway from this is like making sure that you're always reevaluating the main goal, and to make sure that it aligns to the point at which you're in the process, and see, is this still realistic to accomplish? Are we on track? And if not, it's okay to change it. And it's not a failure because you're kind of changing it up a little bit, because I feel like that's what happens. Like, I feel like people start to feel like, well, I'm not going to achieve a goal. No, we changed the expectation here to
right. And
that it's
exactly. And when having the conversation of everybody's situation is different, right? And again, if you equate it to the nutrition world, just because you lost 15 pounds in a month doesn't mean I'm going to lose 15 pounds in a month. And we could be doing the exact same thing. We're two totally different bodies, right? We have two totally different parts of our life. Maybe I have more stress. Maybe you have more stress. Maybe I'm not getting sleep. So all these other mitigating factors, it's the same thing with trying to just reach a financial goal or any other type of goal, career goal that you have, because there's so many things that are out of the control of myself and obviously of the client, that we have to continuously have that conversation. And it's not a failure. It's the fact being real of, look, we thought this is the way that it was going to pan out. In the last 2 weeks, these things have changed from the original conversation. So now just be mindful that the end result might be further away.
Yeah.
Now, it might be closer, but again, that's the whole point of having the conversation every week. And like you said, being just blunt about it, like, I'm going to tell you what you need to hear.
Yeah.
And it's okay if you get hurt.
Yeah, I think that's important. And I think in one of your podcasts, I listened to one of your podcasts in your one of your episodes in your actual podcast, and you talk about one of like the things that we want the most of. It's not necessarily the goal itself, but more like we want more time to do certain things. And I know that with Cody, you talked a lot about time management and things like that. You're a guy that owns businesses. You have, I think, is it 2 kids,
Yeah.
a wife, and I know you have a dog too.
Yeah.
And some fish. I heard that you also have fish.
Yeah.
So, like, I think a lot of times when people are coming up with these goals and trying to kind of set these realistic expectations, there's always a roadblock that kind of gets in the way, and it's usually somehow related to time. I don't have enough time to do this, and all kinds of stuff like that. And I'm not a dad yet, but I like to say, like, hey man, I have 3 kids and I have all this, and I still manage, but I still haven't really gotten to a point. But I feel you can. So how do you progress towards what you want to accomplish, whether it's like something aesthetic like nutrition and body, or a financial or career goal, when there's so many responsibilities? And how do you personally, and how do you teach your clients to manage their time to make sure that they're moving forward and not necessarily feeling stagnant or moving backwards in the process?
Well, first step is priorities, right? And there's this conversation, how you said the need and the want, right? Like, what do I need to do? For instance, this next week, what are the top things that I need to take care of? And then what are the things that I want to take care of, right? And I think as humans, we have this thought that we could just do it all, right? And I don't care if I'm going to sleep at 1:00 in the morning, and waking up at 5, as long as I get it done. And for a short period of time, it'll work, right? I mean, you've been there, I've been there, especially with business owners, right? Like there's long days, but you can't do that successfully for a long period of time. So it really just comes down to, again, being clear, right? And you'll hear me use the word clear and clarity a lot, because I think that's where people get lost, is like, what's the clarity, or what's your clear path? What is it you're trying to do, again, in the short term? And pretty much putting things in their own box. For instance, career-wise, my business, my family, and even my family, dissecting that into my wife, my kids, my parents. I talk to my mom and dad multiple times a week, making sure that that's happening. My brother, my sister, my nieces, nephews. So all that, is just in the family bubble, right? But throughout the week, what's important to me, that's what goes first on the list. Like, what do I need to do? And the majority of the time, yes, it's going to be work, right? Because that's what pays the bills and lets you do all the other fun stuff that you want to do. But at what point is it too much? And I think that's the problem, where people, if I say no to a meeting, do I feel bad because deep down I feel like I should take that meeting because it's going to bring me more business? And way down the list, obviously my family's going to benefit because I'm going to get more money, right? But if I'm clear on the fact of, look, this is what I need to do to sustain what I want, and yes, there are long days, but the majority of the time, I can't forget about the other important things in my life, which are my family and my kids. So the way I break down my week is essentially just time blocking every day. And there are days where I'm on a call at 6:30 in the morning, right? And there are days where I'm not on a call at till 9. And I can play around with that time as much as I can, but because I have a good grasp on, I'm not going to feel guilty if I say no, or if I have one day that I'm leaving at 1:00 in the afternoon, because I'm very clear on who it is that I am and what it is that I'm trying to accomplish. So the first conversation is always going to be, when it comes to time management, is like, who do you want to be? And what is it that you're trying to accomplish in the next week's time. I don't, yes, it's okay to plan 30, 60, 90 days out, but those are all hypothetical situations.
Yeah, I can't do that.
It's
Like it's
hypothetical, man.
so yeah, because like, time blockings work really well for me, and I think for many people, it's a really good kind of strategy. And I feel like you come because it helps you. But the thing with that too is I feel like sometimes like it's yeah, you can put things into an agenda, but the question is, can you actually like do and like stick and be disciplined about that time block? That's kind of like the main thing that sometimes like people struggle with. Do you kind of find yourself in that, or clients with you, and how do you kind of like,
Yeah.
hey, like this is like the rules that you're establishing for you today. Like
Right.
how do you
Yeah.
stick to it?
And it's really just, again, almost kind of shaping that box for them, right? Because a lot of people, they come on, and it's like anything, right? Like, again, you sign up a new client that wants to lose weight, and it's like, man, like, give me whatever I got to do. I don't care if I have to do it twice a day, because that means that it's going to speed up the process. And you, again, know more than I do that not necessarily, right? That if I go work out 10 hours a day at the gym, it's going to actually hinder me more than it's going to help me,
Yeah.
right? If I don't get any sleep because I'm hard work again. So when it comes down, the true essence of it is the whole quality versus quantity of it, to where if I am going home, am I still going to be worrying about work, or am I going to be actually enjoying my time with my family? Right. So creating that frame for people, that's the biggest struggle, is because honestly, on a personal level, everybody, that's the only thing you can really kind of control is your time. And to have somebody else control it, a lot of people struggle with that. Right. So I've had to have honest conversations. I was like, look, it's week 2. You're not doing it on your own. Right. So for this to work, like this next week, this is what you're going to do. You're going to get off of work at 4. It's like, well, no, sometimes, no, you're going to get off at work at 4, and then you're going to go home and you're going to do this, and then literally lay it out, because I just want you to feel how much better it's going to feel by going this route. And again, it's a difficult conversation. It's hard for people to digest, but that's the only way that you're going to know what it feels like, is by actually going through the process. So eliminating all these unnecessary things of that we feel we have to do and we have to comply with, right? Like I think from the majority of the people, saying no is difficult, especially to friends, family, coworkers. But there does have to be that line of almost, I almost take it back to when I was a kid, and my mom was just like, you're not going out past 6 o'clock. I don't care who wants you to go out at 6
Yeah,
o'clock.
you have to set the boundaries,
Yeah. And the moment you cross that boundary, then you have that difficult conversation, like, so you don't want it that bad then, because you're willing to tiptoe back and forth. And I've had people get upset with me, clients, right? I've had clients cry on the phone, right? Like, I can't believe you just told me that. It's like, look, it's my job to make sure that you stay on track, right? And I think, I know that a lot of coaches they tiptoe on that line of, man, do I really put my foot down? Or do I have this conversation of, oh, well, you know what? Like, let's just be grateful for where you are, right? And let's see what next week brings. And it's like,
yeah.
no, it's not going to work.
So, and then I think another part of it too is because you're teaching people again, like how to stay on track, and you mentioned it yourself. And I think this is, things are going well, you're moving the right direction, and bam, something hits you, and adversity comes in the way.
Mm-hmm.
For some people, sometimes adversity can knock somebody down, and I've seen it, even myself, and it's hard to kind of get up, and then you kind of let go of the goal because it's just not the right time, or how did you deal with that? And I know you've had your own set of adversities yourself.
Mm-hmm.
How did you overcome yours, and how did you teach people to literally understand, like, it's part of life, and how do you get back on your feet to continue to work towards, like, what you were set out to do in the first place? Example of this, I'm sure for many people, is a freaking pandemic that we were
Mm-hmm.
not expecting was going to happen, right?
Right. I think it's connecting it to that original, because remember how you said, right? Like, if you connect it to the why you're doing something, you're always going to have that like motivational pull, right? Like, it's always going to pull, whether it's a heartstring or whatever it is, like it's connected to that. And if I were to tell you right now, let's just say you did have a kid, right? Like, you would do whatever you had to do for that kid, right? Like,
Yep.
to make sure that they're okay. But that's your why. Like, why do you get up and do? Because for my family, or for my whatever that reason is. So when somebody falls off, the first conversation is like, we can't go back, right? So And it's funny you say that because right now we're actually going through that with a client where consistent for a couple months and then just went completely off the radar, right? And not even like responding or nothing, just completely like went ghost. And then finally comes back, but now there's this internal struggle of guilt, right? Like, man, like I feel like I let you down. I feel like I let my friends down, my family down, because I had talked a big game, right, of being consistent and kind of reaching my goals, and now I'm out. And the first conversation I had with her was, look, the people that are really in your corner, like, we're not here to bash you, right? So we can't go back. We can't figure out, like, we can have a conversation of what was going through your head when you fell off and you didn't stay consistent. But that's it. Once we have that conversation, that whatever happened the past couple of weeks is off the table. And now what's the next step? And it's a simple step, right? In nutrition, and it's, if you were eating clean and all of a sudden you fell off for 2 days, what's the first step? Just eat better the next meal. That's it. I mean, but I think we create this big mountain of this issue, and every time we fall off more and more and more, especially if it's a 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 day thing, the mountain just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And the client is in a position where they're just looking up at the mountain saying,
I might as well give up and just
but
not
yeah,
go.
it's just easier to go back, right? Because we've been climbing up this mountain. So it's easier to go back down the mountain than to keep climbing up. And, but if the clarity's there and that emotional or motivational attachment to something is there, then we really bring that out and say, look, for one, the only time we're going to talk about the past is just literally to talk about how far you've come. And moving forward, like, this is why you're doing it, and don't forget it. And the next step is literally just start journaling tomorrow. Get back on track. Get back on your habits for the day, right? Wake up how you were doing it before, journal, meditate or pray, right? Get a good meal in and get to work. That's it.
And you mentioned journaling. I have been doing that for, like, I think that's been a life changer for me. And I know that you do it as well.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you recommend it? And what do you actually tell people to write on those things? Because I have, like, dude, this is like my yellow one, this year. It's like, this is my third, like, and I
Right.
have like one for every year.
Right.
So
Right.
like, and that's something I also recommend to people I work with. Why do you think it's important, and what's helped you actually realize, the fact that you're writing things down like that?
To me, there's actually a quote that I actually write in, because I give all my clients a journal, and I write a quote in there, and it says, journaling is like whispering to oneself and listening at the same time. Right. So I take that deep because that's exactly why I journal. It's like I'm having a conversation with myself, right? All the things that I I probably could share with somebody, but I don't want to. Like, I'm at least sharing it with myself and being real about it. So the first step when journaling that I tell clients, very few clients come into the tribe journaling before, right? Very few people do, especially guys, right? Like, guys are never journaling on their own. So it usually starts out with, look, just keep it simple for the first 2 to 3 weeks. And it's just, even do like a good and a bad. What was a good for the day? What was a higher or low? What was a higher for the day? What was a low for the day? And then for the low, what do you think you could do to make it better? And that's it, right? There's no amount, it's not about writing half a page or a page. It's just put words down. If you want to do bullet points, put bullet points. There's just, and then we start tightening it up, 2 to 3 weeks down the line. And the interesting fact is, I would easily say that 9 out of 10 people, they don't even need any help past that second or third week with journaling, because they've found what it does for them, and they found kind of their own little niche of what to write about, how long to write about it. And it's through the conversations and the discoveries that we've had in the first few weeks of our conversations, right? And the biggest eye opener is when they realize, like, why they really want accountability coaching. And it's not necessarily for that career. It's just to become a better version of themselves. That's really what it comes down to. And journaling, to me, is a foundation for the tribe, where, like, it's going to open up your true self, but to yourself. And it sounds crazy, and it sounds gimmicky or whatever, but
No,
that's
it's
the reality of it.
literally what we teach, and a lot, and literally when I'm telling my clients, I'm like, hey, this is gonna sound like woo woo, and it may
Yep.
bring you back, like for the females, I'm like, it might bring you back to the times that you were just writing on your diary when you were younger, but it's
Right.
literally it's literally the same. It's like a
Mhm,
diary for adults.
mhm,
You know,
mhm,
you're kind of writing out your thoughts, and it kind
yep,
of helps you self-reflect, and I feel like
mhm,
it's been powerful, and I just always usually kind of tell people it's kind of like, imagine you have all these things like bottled up in your head. It's a way to kind of let go, and I explain like,
mhm,
you know, I'm a Harry Potter fan, so I usually explain it as a way, like there's like this one of the movies where like Dumbledore, it's like taking like a magic wand, and he's taking like his thoughts out of his head and putting them on a bowl. It's
yep,
exactly what you're doing when you're
yeah,
journaling.
that's it.
Yeah, man, that's
Yep.
awesome. Cool, man. Well, I wanna this is awesome because like I think it's getting a lot of people like some quick actionable items. Is there anything else that you kind of teach your clients as they're starting to, you know, in their ways of achieving things that are quick actionable items that you feel like people could take and say, you know what, like this is something I need to start doing
Mhm.
to get me in a better spot that I was yesterday, that you typically like to share?
Yeah, to me, I think it boils down to gratitude. Being, but again, being 100% real with yourself, and really truly seeing where you're at. And any of my clients will tell you that I use this saying over and over again, that it can always be worse, right? Like no matter what situation you're at, no matter what place in life you're in, I don't care how much money you just lost. I don't care how many hamburgers you just ate and you feel bad about yourself. It can always be worse. And that's where gratitude really comes from for me, is to really sit down, where there's been times, that I had, that I just feel like everything's just coming down, right? And the taking a step back, kind of visualizing, and the first thing I start off with is just, I'm like, what am I grateful for? Right. And in a funny way, it brings it to perspective that, when there's multiple things coming down, I even tell myself I'm grateful for even being able to be in this position to have all these things coming down. Right. Because that in its sense will bring me back to my trajectory and my history and what I've had to do to get to where I'm at, what my parents had to do. And to me, it's easy because I connected to that right away. Right. Like to me, if I feel like I'm struggling, or if I feel like something in my businesses is coming down or whatever, I literally, all I have to do is think about what my dad had to do to get over to this country. And if I still feel bad about myself after that, then there's something wrong with
Yeah.
me. You know what I mean? Like honestly, so it can always be worse. And the timeline thing is important too, because a lot of people, like, why is your timeline so set in stone? Right? Like, why is it that you need to lose weight in X amount of time?
Yeah.
Or, like, is again because somebody else did it? Or, if it's tied to a trip and all that, obviously that's the majority of it. Like, oh, I'm gonna go on a trip, or my honeymoon or whatever, and I want to look good. Okay, obviously, but like, what's the true meaning of that timeline? And really kind of just going back to the gratitude, wherever it is that you're at, and it can always be worse.
Nah, nice, man. Yeah, that's it's always kind of like perception, right? It's like,
Mhm.
you know, how do you see things and what lens you choose to see them through.
Exactly.
And I think it kind of makes all the difference in the world.
That's right.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for sharing all that knowledge. I want to be respectful of your time, but I always like to finish this podcast with this, what I like to call, like, you know, rapid fire questions. And so just four simple things so we can kind of end on a good note, and then you can tell everybody listening into about La Tribu and
Mm-hmm.
how can people get in touch with you. Ready for these?
Let's do it.
Awesome. First would be the favorite exercise or movement you like to do.
Favorite exercise or move? Is that what we said?
Yeah, exercise or
I like
movement.
I like to push the sled.
Oh, damn, dude. Like, it's the first time I've ever heard anybody talk about the sled in a positive way.
Yeah, for me,
Yeah.
I just love seeing the plate stack up and just moving that thing.
How many places you usually move?
A good 10 or 12.
What?
Yeah,
That's what, it's like 500 pounds or so
yeah,
pushing like that thing.
yeah,
Damn,
yeah.
dude, it's awesome. Yeah, I think I remember the first time I saw a sled. There was a warning sign. This is like, you know, warning, like, you know, this may cause like, you know, flu-like symptoms like
Oh yeah,
vomiting and like stuff like that. And
yep,
I'm like, yeah, this is
yep.
gonna be fun. Awesome. Well, that's an interesting one. Second one, what would be a let's say, you know, you're gifting a book to everybody that you see. What would be that book? Like, what would be something that everybody should have on their bookshelf right now?
It would be the one thing. The One
The
Thing.
One
Yeah, The
Thing.
One Thing. Yeah, by
Nice.
Gary Keller.
Okay.
It's a very simple read,
Yep,
and it really just
and
clears
that's the
everything.
one I've heard it many times recommended it to me. I'm gonna write it down. Every time somebody gives me a book recommendation, I buy it, and if I'm reading something else, I put it in there, and that's gonna go
Yep.
in the read list. So that's great.
Yeah.
The One Thing, great. We're gonna put that in the show notes. Third question would be, what is a podcast or educational like electronic resource that people can go to learn about anything? It could be your favorite podcast. You could definitely shameless plug on yours, and like anybody, anything you like to recommend for people to listen to or to kind of get educated on any kind of topic.
I listened to Satema Gali. It's the Daily Revolution.
Okay.
Just he's I've had the pleasure of meeting him in person, and he's just a positive guy, man. Like even in person, and then I think that's why I resonate so much with this podcast, because like I've seen it. It's real, right? It's
Yep.
not just behind the mic and the camera's on. Like I've seen him just interacting at the gym and training, and he's got a really good story. But more than anything, he's just full of positivity.
Nice. The Daily Revolution you mentioned. You
Mhm.
said, right? Okay.
Mhm.
Gotta listen to that one. Never heard of it. Great. Last question would be the funnest one would be, if you were stranded on a desert island for the rest of your life and you could choose one food and one food only, it could be compound, it could be just one single ingredient, to live off for the rest of existence, what would that be?
Ceviche.
Oh, there you go. You gotta get the Peruvian in there. Do you make it?
Oh, I make it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are you good in the kitchen?
I'm good on the grill. I love to
Okay.
grill. I love to smoke stuff. I love to.
Nice.
Yeah. I'm more on that side. My wife is the chef in the house,
Okay.
but yeah, I'm into it.
Nice, man. Awesome. All right. So why don't you tell people a little bit more about La Tribu, what you do, how can people contact you, get in touch with you, and possibly even get coached by you?
Hmm. So La Tribu is again is Spanish for tribe, and it's accountability / performance coaching. That's what I kind of put the category under. Uh, I'm not a big fan of the whole life coach term. I've always said that for me to consider myself a life coach, it'll probably be when I'm like 90, and I can honestly say that I've lived a full life and gone through enough life
All
experiences
stages.
to get somebody through it. But pretty much it's where it's a group, it's a community. I help people really just find clarity on who they are and what they really want to do, and help them find the map. I have all this. I don't know if you've heard the saying I say is that it's, as a coach, as an accountability coach, it's not my job to give you the map, right? It's my job to help you find it. But the most important thing is to make sure you read it, right? So through conversations, we'll find out the true meaning of why it is that you're trying to get to where it is that you're trying to get to, and then we'll obviously put a roadmap in place, and then we're going to hold you accountable to it to make sure that at every checkpoint you're where you're supposed to be, and really come out in this well-rounded, better human being aspect. We focus on 5 foundations, which is fellowship, faith, family, fruitfulness, and we really just put all that into one kind of systematic approach of just making sure that every week you feel that you're moving in the right direction.
Nice, man. And I think, and the best way to kind of reach out to you would be either through your website or your Instagram. I think is the best way, or like the place where you're mostly active.
Yeah, the majority of the time it's Instagram. It's Andres and the letter V, La Tribu. So Andres V, La Tribu, and then my website is latribucoach.com.
Awesome. Yeah, we're gonna put those on the show notes, guys. Like, so you can get in touch with Andres, not me, but the other Andres.
Right.
So awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for taking the time here today and sharing a lot of your value and knowledge. And we'll definitely try to make sure. Hopefully, we'll bring you back and kind of like share some more in depth stuff as far as like your foundations, some more things about your accountability coaching in the future.
Sounds good, man. No, I appreciate the opportunity and appreciate the invite, and be looking forward to that next one.
Awesome. Thank you so much.